We grow up with a very simple picture in our heads. Light turns on, light moves, light arrives. A flashlight switches on here, and something leaves the flashlight, races through space, and hits the wall over there. It feels obvious, it feels intuitive, and it's also deeply misleading. What actually happens is far stranger, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Light is not a little object flying through space like a tiny, invisible bullet. There is no particle zooming along a cosmic highway. What we call light moving is not motion in the way we usually mean it. It's an event, a process, a continuous act of creation happening again and again. Imagine a row of standing dominoes. You push the first one and it falls, knocking the next and the next and the next. Now here's the crucial question. What moved down the line? The dominoes didn't travel. Each one only tipped over in its own place. What moved was the pattern, the disturbance, the effect. Light behaves the same way. When an atom emits light, it doesn't throw something outward into empty space. It disturbs the electromagnetic field around it. That disturbance causes the field nearby to respond, and that response triggers another response and another and another. Energy and information are transferred, yes, but nothing is physically marching forward through the void. This is where our intuition rebels, because our brains are built for rocks and arrows, not fields and interactions. We want light to be a thing because things are easy to imagine, but nature doesn't care about what's easy for us. What's actually happening is that electric and magnetic fields are dancing together. A change in one creates a change in the other, and that mutual interaction sustains itself. Light exists only as long as this process continues. The moment it stops interacting, it ceases to exist. There is no hidden object behind the curtain, and this leads to a disturbing realization. Light does not travel through space the way a car travels through a road. Space is not a container holding light. Space is the condition that allows this interaction to occur at all. We casually say light left the sun 8 minutes ago, as if something packed a bag and went on a long journey. But what really happened is this. The sun disturbed the electromagnetic field, and that disturbance kept recreating itself locally, step by step, until it finally interacted with your eyes. The light you see is not ancient. It is new, created right where you are. That idea alone should make you pause. Because if light is not a moving thing, then motion itself is not what we thought it was. What moves is not objects, but influence. Not matter, but relationships. Reality, at its most fundamental level, is not made of stuff. It's made of interactions. This has psychological consequences, not just scientific ones. We like to believe we live in a solid, stable world of things that exist independently of us. But light refuses to play along. It only exists when something happens, when something interacts, when something responds. Even seeing is not passive. You are not a spectator watching photons arrive. You are part of the process that brings light into being. Until light interacts with your eyes, it has no color, no brightness, no meaning. The universe is not showing itself to you. It is being completed by you. And this quietly demolishes the idea that reality is just out there, fully formed, waiting to be observed. What we experience is a continuous negotiation between the universe and the observer. Light is the messenger, but also the message, and the act of delivery is the act of creation. Once you understand this, the question, how fast does light travel, starts to feel like the wrong question. The better question is, how fast can reality update itself? How quickly can cause turn into effect across the fabric of existence? Light is not racing through space. Space is responding to change. And when you realize that what you call motion is really a pattern unfolding, and what you call light is really an ongoing event, you begin to sense something deeper. The universe is not a machine pushing objects around. It is a conversation, happening everywhere, all at once. Here's the thought to carry with you. If light is not a thing moving through space, then maybe you are not a thing moving through time either. Maybe existence itself is something that only happens when interaction occurs. And if that's true, then the most important question is not where you are going, but how you are participating in the moment that is being created right now. Once you let go of the idea that light is a tiny object flying through the void, the next assumption quietly collapses on its own. We imagine light needing something to travel through. A road, a medium, a background, because in everyday life, motion always requires a place to happen in. Sound needs air, waves need water, so we naturally ask, what does light move through? The surprising answer is, nothing in the way you think. And everything in a way you've never considered. We've been trained to picture space as an empty box. A vast, black container where planets, stars, and beams of light float around inside. Space, in this picture, is passive. It just sits there while things move through it. But that picture is a leftover from human intuition, not from reality. In modern physics, space is not an empty stage waiting for actors. Space is active, it has structure, it has rules, it can stretch, bend, ripple, and respond. When light appears, it's not entering space like a swimmer entering water. It's activating something that already exists everywhere. The electromagnetic field is not located in space the way furniture is located in a room. It is part of what space is. Everywhere there is space, there is this field ready to respond. Light doesn't need a road because the road is already built into reality itself. This is why the old idea of the luminiferous ether failed. Scientists once believed light must be vibrating through some invisible substance filling space. When experiments showed no such substance existed, it felt like a mystery. But the real mistake was assuming light needed a medium at all. Light doesn't travel through space. It happens as space responds to change. Think about that carefully. Space is not emptiness. Emptiness is an illusion created by our senses. Even what we call a vacuum is alive with potential, fields, fluctuations, probabilities. Space is not nothing. It's a condition, a framework of relationships that allows events to occur. Psychologically, this challenges something deep inside us. We like to believe that emptiness is safe, neutral, harmless. But space is not neutral. It participates. It enforces limits. It decides what is possible and what is not. The speed of light, for example, is not a property of light alone. It is a property of space itself, how quickly space allows cause and effect to propagate. So when we say light moves at the speed of light, what we're really saying is that space has a maximum response rate. Reality has a refresh limit. No signal, no influence, no interaction can update the universe faster than that. That's not just a scientific constraint, it's a philosophical one. It means the universe is not infinitely flexible. There is a built-in structure to how events unfold. Space is not a passive backdrop. It is the rulebook. And here's where things get personal. If space is active, then you are never truly in an empty place. Every moment of your life is happening inside a responsive, dynamic fabric that connects everything to everything else. There is no absolute isolation. Even in the darkest vacuum between galaxies, the same rules apply, the same fields exist, the same potential for interaction remains. This quietly reframes our sense of separation. The distance between objects is not just a gap. It's a relationship governed by space itself. Near and far are not merely measurements. They are statements about how strongly things can influence one another. We often feel disconnected, as if we're isolated points drifting in a meaningless void. But the universe does not work that way. Space is the web that ensures nothing is ever completely cut off. Influence may weaken, but it never disappears. Every action leaves a trace, not because of mysticism, but because space remembers how interactions unfold. And when light appears, it's not conquering emptiness, it's revealing connection. Each flash, each glow, each photon, like event, is space responding everywhere it's allowed to, exactly as fast as it can. Once you see this, you stop asking where light goes. You start asking how reality responds, and that shift matters beyond physics. It changes how you think about absence, distance, and possibility. There is no truly empty moment in your life, only moments where interaction is subtle enough that you've learned to ignore it. So here's the thought to take with you. If space is not empty, then neither are you. You are not moving through a void. You are participating in a living structure that is constantly responding to what you do. And the moment you realize that, you stop waiting for the universe to give you a path, and you start understanding that every step you take reshapes the space you're in. Now we arrive at the point where intuition doesn't just bend, it breaks. Because once you understand that light isn't a thing moving through space, and space itself isn't an empty container, time is the next idea that quietly collapses. And it collapses in a way that feels almost personal. We talk about light traveling for years, centuries, billions of years. Light from distant galaxies, ancient starlight, messages from the past finally reaching us. It sounds poetic. It sounds reasonable, but it's also not the full story. From our perspective, light takes time. From light's perspective, time does not exist. This is not philosophy pretending to be physics. This is physics telling you something profoundly unsettling. According to relativity, as something approaches the speed of light, time slows down relative to everything else. Clocks tick more slowly, processes stretch out, and at exactly the speed of light, time doesn't slow, it stops. For light itself, there is no before and after, no journey, no waiting. The moment light is emitted and the moment it is absorbed are the same moment. Let that sink in. A photon leaving the surface of the sun and being absorbed by your eye 8 minutes later does not experience those 8 minutes. From its perspective, there is no distance to cross and no time to pass. The entire universe between emission and absorption collapses into a single event. What we call travel is something only observers experience, not light itself. This forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Time is not a universal river flowing the same way for everything. Time is local, personal, dependent on how you move through the structure of reality. Light does not live in time the way we do. It exists outside the narrative we rely on to make sense of life. Psychologically, this is hard to accept because our identity is built on time. Memory, anticipation, regret, hope. All of it assumes a past behind us and a future ahead of us. But light doesn't have a past or a future. It has only interaction, and that raises a disturbing question. If something as fundamental as light doesn't experience time, how fundamental is time really? We tend to treat time as the ultimate authority. Time heals, time destroys, time moves forward no matter what we do. But physics suggests something subtler. Time is not the stage on which the universe acts. Time is part of the play. It emerges from relationships between events. For us, time stretches because we move slowly through space compared to light. We experience sequences. We experience delays. We experience cause and effect as separate moments. but light collapses cause and effect into one. This means that the universe, at its deepest level, is not organized around timelines, it's organized around connections. And once you see that, you realize how misleading our everyday language really is. We say the past is gone and the future hasn't happened yet. But light doesn't recognize that distinction. For light, what we call the past and the future coexist in a single interaction. This doesn't mean everything is predetermined or frozen. It means that time is not as absolute as it feels. What feels solid and unavoidable to us is, in reality, a perspective, a consequence of how we move through the universe. And here's where this stops being abstract and starts becoming personal. If time is not universal, then urgency is not imposed by the universe. It's imposed by us. The pressure we feel, the sense of running out of time, is a feature of human experience, not a cosmic law. The universe is not rushing, it is responding. Light teaches us that meaning doesn't come from duration. It comes from interaction. A moment does not matter because it lasts long. It matters because something happens in it. You can live a long life without meaningful interaction, or you can compress meaning into a single instant that changes everything. The universe doesn't measure your life in years. It measures it in connections. So when you say you don't have time, what you often mean is that you are postponing interaction. You are delaying the moment when something real happens. Light would never make that mistake because for light, there is only the moment of impact. Here's the thought to leave with you. If light experiences no journey, then maybe the most important moments of your life are not ahead of you or behind you. Maybe they exist only in the depth of the interaction you choose right now. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for the right time, and you start becoming the event. By the time you reach this point, something subtle should feel unsettled. Because if light is not a thing, if space is not empty, and if time does not exist for light the way it exists for us, then the final illusion has nowhere left to hide. The illusion that what you see is reality, it isn't. What you experience as reality is light's translation, not the source itself. You are not seeing the universe as it is, you are seeing the universe as light allows it to appear. Every color you've ever seen, every face you've recognized, every horizon you've admired is a reconstruction. Light hits an object, interacts with it, carries information, and then interacts with your eyes and brain. By the time you experience anything, it has already been filtered, delayed, interpreted, and edited. You don't see objects. You see how objects disturb light. That sounds abstract until you realize how complete this mediation is. You have never seen an atom, a chair, or even your own hands directly. You've only seen patterns of electromagnetic interaction that your brain has learned to interpret as solid things. Reality, as you know it, is a rendering, and like any rendering, it's optimized not for truth, but for survival. Your brain is not a truth-seeking machine, it's a prediction engine. It takes incomplete information carried by light and fills in the gaps. It smooths edges, it invents continuity, it gives you a stable world because a perfectly accurate one would be overwhelming. This is why illusions work. This is why expectations shape perception. This is why two people can witness the same event and remember it differently. Light provides data, but meaning is assembled inside you. Psychologically, this is uncomfortable because we want certainty. We want to believe that what we see is reliable, solid, objective, but light never promised objectivity. It only promised interaction. Even color itself doesn't exist in the world. There is no red or blue out there. There are only wavelengths. Color is something your nervous system invents to make sense of different energies. Reality, stripped of interpretation, is far stranger and far less intuitive than our experience suggests. And this leads to a powerful realization. You are not a passive observer of reality. You are a participant in its construction. Until light interacts with your eyes, there is no image. Until signals interact with your brain, there is no experience. The universe you live in only becomes your universe through engagement. This doesn't mean reality is imaginary. It means reality is relational. What exists for you is what interacts with you. Light is the bridge, but the crossing only happens when you meet it halfway. This also explains why awareness changes everything. When you pay attention, reality sharpens. When you don't, it fades into background noise. The universe doesn't change, but your participation in it does. And here's the deeper philosophical turn. If reality is always filtered, then the most dangerous illusions are not optical ones. They're psychological ones, assumptions, narratives, beliefs you stop questioning because they feel familiar. Just as light creates the illusion of solidity, your mind creates the illusion of certainty. You think you know who you are, how the world works, what's possible. But those too are renderings useful but incomplete. Light teaches us humility. It reminds us that what feels obvious may be deeply misleading. That what feels immediate is actually constructed, and that understanding doesn't come from staring harder at the world, but from questioning how you see it. Once you accept that reality is not delivered to you whole, you gain something rare, responsibility. If your experience of the world is partly shaped by how you engage with it, then curiosity matters, attention matters, honesty with yourself matters. You can't control the universe, but you can control the quality of your interaction with it. And this is where science quietly meets wisdom. The more carefully you observe, the less certain you become, and the more accurate your understanding grows. Certainty shrinks, awareness expands. So when light shows you the world, remember, it's not showing you the final truth. It's inviting you into a dialogue. Here's the thought to leave you with. If everything you experience is a constructed interaction, then your life is not something that merely happens to you. It is something you are actively shaping with every moment of attention you give. And once you realize that, you don't just look at reality differently. You participate in it deliberately.